The hall of the alien palace was filled with lights, banners, and the sound of alien voices. They had gathered to celebrate a victory. A battle had ended, and the human soldier had fought with such courage that even the alien rulers could not deny his strength. He walked into the hall slowly, his steps echoing across the shining floor. His eyes moved across the alien faces, some filled with respect, some filled with doubt. To them, humans were strange, unpredictable, too emotional, but this man had saved their soldiers. He had fought not for reward but because he could not stand to see innocent lives destroyed. The alien leader raised his voice. "Human, you have earned a prize beyond gold or jewels." His words carried through the hall, and all eyes turned to see what reward would be given. The human kept his face calm, though inside he felt uneasy. He never trusted the way aliens gave rewards. There was always something dark hidden beneath the honor. Then from the shadows 2 guards stepped forward. Between them walked a figure, small and quiet. She was a young alien woman, her hands bound. With glowing chains, her head was lowered, her eyes on the floor. The hall went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. "She is yours," the alien leader declared. "A slave bride for the warrior who has proven himself." The words hung heavy in the air. Some aliens nodded in approval, others whispered to each other. But the human stood frozen. His heart tightened as he looked at her. She was not a prize, she was not a thing, she was alive. The alien girl trembled under the stairs. Her skin shimmered with pale light, and her hair fell in tangled strands. The chains around her wrists glowed softly, a cruel reminder that she belonged to no one but her captors. She did not lift her eyes. She had already accepted her fate. To her, humans were the same as all others, masters who would use her and break her spirit. But this man's eyes did not look at her with hunger or pride. They looked at her with something she had not seen in years: pity. The hall waited for his answer. Would he smile and accept? Would he step forward and claim her? That was what they expected. That was what tradition demanded. Instead, silence stretched. The human's jaw tightened. He felt every stare on him. He heard every whisper. His mind raced. What kind of world gave a woman in chains as a reward? What kind of creatures thought this was honor? He took one step forward and the hall grew tense. The alien girl's heart raced. She did not dare to breathe. Her whole body shook. She prepared herself for the rough hand of a new master. But instead of reaching for her chains, the man spoke. His voice was calm but sharp. "This is your reward?" he asked. The hall grew colder. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Some frowned, others smirked. "Yes," the leader said. "She is yours. She will obey. She will serve. She is nothing but a gift." The man's eyes darkened. He wanted to shout, but he held his anger. He looked again at the girl. Her shoulders were shaking. Her breath was shallow. He knew fear when he saw it. He had seen it on battlefields, on the faces of children hiding from war, and in that moment he made a choice. The aliens expected a soldier to accept. They expected him to follow their cruel game, but he was not like them. He was human. The silence grew heavier. Every second stretched longer. The alien leader narrowed his eyes, waiting for the man to bow, waiting for him to kneel and thank them. But the man did not kneel. His voice carried across the hall, steady and unshaken. "I do not fight for slaves," he said. "I do not fight for chains." Gasps filled the air. Some aliens laughed in disbelief. Others whispered in anger. The girl finally lifted her eyes, and for the first time she looked at him directly. She expected cruelty, but instead she found something else. Defiance. The human did not look away. His hand reached forward, not to pull her closer, but to touch the glowing chains. The aliens murmured louder. Was he going to claim her, or something worse? His fingers tightened on the chains, and in one quick move he unlocked them. The light faded. The chains clattered to the floor. The sound echoed like thunder in the hall. The alien girl's eyes widened. She could not believe what had just happened. Her arms were free, her breath caught in her throat. The human stepped back, his voice strong. "If this is your idea of a reward, then I want none of it." The hall exploded in whispers. Some shouted in outrage, Others stared in shock. The alien leader's face twisted with anger. This was not how the ceremony was meant to end, but the girl, trembling, touched her free wrists. For the first time in years, she felt no chains, and in her heart, a spark of hope began to grow. The human stood tall. His choice was dangerous. He had just insulted their tradition. He had just defied their power. But he did not care, because in that moment, he knew the truth. Humanity was not about owning. Humanity was about freeing, and with that act, the galaxy itself began to change. The great hall was still echoing with whispers. The sound of the chains falling to the floor had broken the silence like a thunderclap. Every alien eye followed the girl as she stood trembling, her wrists free for the first time in years. The human had done something unthinkable, and the weight of that moment hung in the air like smoke after fire. The alien leader's face darkened. His jaw tightened. His voice shook with anger. "You dare reject our gift?" he growled. The human did not answer right away. Instead, he turned his gaze back to the girl. She was thin, her frame fragile, her skin carrying the pale glow of her species. Her eyes, wide with fear and confusion, flickered like two broken lights that had almost given up shining. For so long she had lived in darkness, owned, used, ignored. Her life had been a chain, each day bound to another master, each night filled with dread of what would come next. She had forgotten how to hope, forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. And yet in that moment, when the human unlocked her bonds, something stirred in her chest, something she thought was lost forever. Freedom. The guards shifted uneasily. Their hands gripped their weapons, waiting for the command to drag her back. The alien crowd murmured like a restless sea. Some sneered at the human's defiance, some admired his boldness, but all were waiting for what came next. The girl herself could not move. She stood frozen, staring at her wrists. Her skin bore the marks of long captivity, faint scars where chains had burned. She rubbed them slowly, almost afraid the freedom was only a dream that would vanish if she blinked. The human bent down and picked up the glowing shackles from the floor. He held them up before the crowd, his voice carried through the hall. "These chains are not a gift," he said. "They are a curse." Gasps spread again. The alien leader rose to his feet, his cloak shifting like storm clouds. "You insult us," he spat. "You insult our traditions." But the human did not back down. His eyes returned to the girl, and for the first time she saw not pity but strength. He was not afraid of their power, not afraid of their judgment. She realized that this man was different, and the thought frightened her almost as much as it comforted her. The guard stepped closer, but the leader raised a hand to stop them. He wanted to see what the human would do next. He wanted to measure this strange defiance. The girl swayed slightly, her knees weak. The chains had been more than metal. They had been a weight on her soul. Now without them she felt light but also lost. She did not know what she was anymore. A slave without chains? A prize rejected? A being with no place in this world? The human noticed her trembling. Without thinking, he reached out a hand, slowly, carefully, so she would not fear him. She flinched at first, years of training telling her to expect pain, but his touch was gentle, steady, almost protective. "You are safe now," he whispered. The words hit her harder than any chain ever had. Safe. The word was foreign, strange, almost unbelievable. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She had forgotten how to speak without being ordered. She had forgotten how to trust her own voice. The aliens around them scoffed. "Foolish human," one muttered. "He does not understand what he has done." Another whispered, "He treats her as if she is equal." To them it was madness, but to the girl it was something more. For the first time in so many years, someone had spoken to her, not at her. Someone had touched her without cruelty. Someone had looked at her and seen more than a slave. The alien leader's voice thundered. Again, "If you do not want her as your property, then what do you want, human?" The human's answer was calm but sharp. "I want her free." The words rolled through the hall like fire. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger, others in disbelief. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. Never before had someone dared to refuse the leader's reward in this way. The girl's breath caught. She looked at him in shock. Her heart pounded in her chest. No one had ever spoken those words for her. Freedom had been a dream she had buried, deep, a dream too dangerous to hold on to. The leader laughed, the sound cold and bitter. Free? You think one word can erase years of ownership? You think freedom is yours to give? The human's eyes narrowed. Freedom is not given by chains, he said. It is taken back. The hall grew louder. The aliens hissed and shouted. Some demanded the human be punished. Some demanded the girl be chained again. But the leader only watched, his eyes gleaming with something more than anger, curiosity, perhaps even fear. The girl stepped back, her hands clutching her chest. She could not understand this human. Why risk so much for her? Why face the wrath of an entire empire for a stranger? She was no warrior, no leader. She was nothing but a slave. Yet in his eyes she saw something that told her otherwise. He saw her not as nothing, but as someone worth saving. The guards finally moved, surrounding them. Weapons hummed with power, ready to strike. The crowd fell silent again, watching with hungry eyes. Would the human fight? Would he die here in the heart of the alien palace? The human did not move toward his weapon. Instead, he stood calmly, shielding the girl behind him. His voice was steady. If your reward is chains, then I reject it, he said. If your honor is slavery, then I spit on it. The leader's eyes burned with fury, but still he did not give the command. He wanted to see what kind of man would dare challenge him in his own hall. The girl, trembling, felt something stir inside her. She had lived so long in fear, but this man's courage was like fire warming a frozen heart. She felt tears burning in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of something she had not felt in years. Hope. And, for the first time, she whispered, her voice soft, broken, but real. Why? The human turned to her. His expression softened. Because no one deserves chains, he said. Her lips trembled. The words echoed in her mind again and again. No one deserves chains. She had never believed it, but now, standing beside him, she began to wonder if it was true. The aliens could not understand what they were seeing. A slave girl freed, a human standing against them. It was madness. It was dangerous. And yet it was real. The hall felt smaller, the air heavier. The choice had been made, the chains were gone, and nothing would ever be the same again. The great hall of the alien palace trembled with noise. Whispers turned to shouts, sneers turned to growls. The human had done something no one had ever dared. He had broken the chains of a slave given. As a reward, the alien leader's eyes burned like twin suns. His voice roared above the crowd. Human, you insult me. You insult our people. You insult our traditions. The guards moved closer, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. The freed girl stood frozen behind him. Her heart raced in terror. She had seen men executed for far less. She had seen slaves torn apart for defiance. Every part of her screamed that this man had sealed his doom. And yet he did not tremble. He did not kneel. Instead, his voice carried across the hall, calm but firm. I will not take chains as a prize, he said. I will not take a life. As property, gasps filled the air, aliens muttered in disbelief. One sneered, he is mad. Another hissed, he thinks he can stand against us. The leader raised a hand and the guard stopped. He studied the human with sharp curiosity. He had seen warriors beg. He had seen them grovel. But never had he seen one refuse a reward of power. Never had he seen one speak as if their ways were wrong. This is your final chance, the leader growled. His voice shook the hall. Take the girl as your slave bride, or face the punishment of death. The human's jaw tightened. His eyes flickered to the girl. She looked at him with wide, terrified eyes. He could see her trembling. He could feel her fear pressing against him like cold wind, but he did not hesitate. His voice rang out clearly. Then I choose death before chains. The hall erupted into chaos. Aliens shouted in outrage. Some laughed in disbelief. Others, screamed for blood. The guards raised their weapons again. The freed girl gasped. She could not believe what she had heard. This human was not only rejecting her chains, he was willing to die for that choice. Her knees weakened. She wanted to scream, to beg him not to speak such words, but no sound left her lips. She was too afraid. The leader's eyes narrowed. He saw no fear in the human's face, only resolve. That unsettled him more than any weapon. For he knew fear. He ruled with fear. But this man did not bend. Slowly, the leader smiled, though his smile was cold and cruel. "Very well, human," he said. "If you do not want her as property, then you shall both learn the cost of defiance." He waved his hand, and the guards stepped forward. The girl clutched the human's arm instinctively. Her voice finally broke free, trembling. "Please, don't. You'll die." The human glanced at her. His eyes softened for a moment. "Better to die free," he whispered. Her heart clenched. No one had ever spoken like that. No one had ever cared enough to risk their life for her. The guards advanced, their heavy boots thudding against the floor. The crowd's voices rose like a storm. Some cheered, others mocked. The human reached for his weapon slowly. The hall grew tense. One wrong move could turn the celebration into bloodshed. But then, the leader raised his hand again. The guards froze. The hall fell silent. His voice cut through the air. "No, not yet," he said. "The galaxy is watching. Let them see this foolish human. Let them see what becomes of those who spit on our ways." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the human. "You will not die today, warrior," he said. "You will live, but you will live with her, and the galaxy will watch as your choice destroys you both." The crowd roared with approval. They loved punishment dressed as mercy. They loved the thought of suffering stretched long instead of quick death. The human's hand tightened on his weapon, but he did not draw it. He understood the game now. They would not kill him, not yet. They wanted to break him, to make him regret his choice. The girl clutched his sleeve tighter. Her eyes darted from the leader to the guards. She whispered softly, "They will hurt you because of me." Her voice was heavy with guilt. He looked at her and shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "They will fear me because of you." Her breath caught. She did not understand how he could be so certain. But there was something in his voice that made her want to believe. The leader snapped his fingers. The guards lowered their weapons but did not step back. They surrounded the human and the girl like hunters circling prey. The leader's final words rang through the hall. "Take them to the human quarters," he commanded. "Let him live with his prize. Let him drown in the choice he has made." The guards forced them to move. The human walked with steady steps, the girl close at his side. Her eyes flicked nervously at every alien stare. Every whisper burned her skin. She had lived as property all her life, but now she was something stranger, free in body, yet chained by fear. When the heavy doors of the hall closed behind them, the noise faded into silence. The girl finally looked at him. Her voice cracked. Why do you do this? You could have lived. You could have had honor, wealth, safety." He paused, meeting her gaze. His voice was low but strong. "Because freedom matters more than honor bought with chains." Her lips trembled. She lowered her eyes, but inside something small and fragile stirred again. A seed of trust. The palace corridors stretched long and dark. Guards flanked them, always watching. The girl kept her head lowered, but her thoughts spun like fire. She could not understand him. This human was like no master she had known. He was not a master at all. For the first time, she wondered if she could believe in something she had thought impossible. A life without chains. A life where she was not property. A life where someone might actually see her as more than a slave. But hope was dangerous. Hope could be crushed. She had learned that lesson too many times, and yet, standing beside him, she could not help but hope again. The human's choice had shocked the hall, angered the leader, and shaken the crowd. But the true storm was yet to come. His decision had not only freed a girl, it had challenged an empire, and the galaxy itself would soon feel the fire of that dangerous choice. The palace halls were silent when the guards led the human and the freed alien girl away. But outside those golden walls, the silence would not last. What happened inside the throne chamber that night would ripple across the galaxy like stones thrown into a still lake. The human's defiance was not buried in shadows. No, every noble, every servant, every soldier who had stood in that great hall carried the memory of his words, "I choose death before chains." Those words spread like fire, whispered from mouth to mouth, carried on secret channels, traded in smoky taverns, repeated in the quiet of slave quarters where hope had long been forgotten. At first the whispers were small. A human freed a slave, some said. He rejected chains as a reward, others added. He defied the emperor's gift. And soon, the small whispers became louder. On the trading station of Vanar, a group of alien merchants argued, "Humans are reckless," one spat. "They do not understand order." Another leaned closer, voice lower. "Or perhaps they understand something we have lost." In the slave pits of Ralos, where thousands of the broken lived under cruel masters, the story reached the ears of the chained. A thin boy with hollow eyes whispered to the others, "They say a man broke the chains of his slave bride. They say he defied them all." The others laughed bitterly at first. "No one defies the masters," one muttered, but the boy shook his head. "This one did, and he lived." The whispers reached places, darker still, hidden courts where powerful rulers discussed threats to their empire. Some saw it as a joke, others saw it as poison. "A single act cannot shake our worlds," one said, but another leaned forward, his tone grim. "One act becomes a story becomes belief, and belief can break empires." Back within the palace, the girl sat quietly in the chamber they had locked her in with the human. The room was large but cold, decorated in alien symbols of power. Yet she could not stop rubbing her wrists where the chains had been. The skin was raw, but the pain was nothing compared to the strange warmth in her chest. She looked at the human, sitting calmly near the door. His eyes were sharp, watching the guards outside. She did not understand him. "Why did you say those words?" she asked softly. Her voice shook. "You knew they would mark you for death?" He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Because someone had to," he said simply. Her heart pounded. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was foolish, but deep inside she felt something she had not in years. Safety. He had not touched her as property, had not spoken to her as a master. Instead, he had given her back something she thought lost forever. Dignity. In the dark, she whispered, "The galaxy will hate you for this." He shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "The galaxy will fear me for this." And outside those walls, his words were already proving true. On distant worlds, rulers debated what this meant. Some feared humans would inspire uprisings. Others dismissed it as nothing more than a single fool's mistake. But slaves across 1,000 systems whispered his name. They did not know his face. They did not know his rank, but they knew his choice. The girl lay awake that night, listening to the silence of the palace. Her mind replayed every moment. The cold eyes of the emperor, the heat of the crowd's whispers, the sharp sound of her chains falling. She turned her head to look at the human again. He sat with his back against the wall, his weapon resting across his knees. His eyes closed, but his body tense, always ready. She studied him quietly. He was not like the others. His face was marked with scars, his hands rough from battles, but his eyes had looked at her as if she was not broken, as if she was not worthless. She wondered if he was mad, or if perhaps he saw something the rest of the galaxy could not. Morning came, and with it, the whispers grew louder. Reports flooded the palace. "Merchants talk of your insult," one official said to the leader. "The slaves sing of your shame." Another added. The emperor's face twisted with rage. He wanted the human dead, he wanted the girl erased, but part of him hesitated because he knew the truth. If the human died now, he would become a legend. And legends are harder to kill than men, so he chose another path. He would let the human live. For now. He would let him walk the galaxy with his freed bride, watched and hunted, mocked and hated. He would let his choice be tested until it broke him. But the Emperor did not understand. He did not see how stories spread, how chains rattled louder when hope was born. He did not see how every whisper of the human's defiance only made him stronger. The girl walked beside the human through the palace corridors the next day, her head still low, her steps uncertain. But inside, her spirit was not the same. She was no longer the girl in chains, she was the girl who had been freed before the eyes of an empire. And somewhere deep inside, she knew that no matter what happened, the galaxy would remember that moment. The human's decision had been dangerous, reckless, even suicidal. But it had planted a seed that was now growing in whispers, whispers that would soon turn into a storm. And while the galaxy whispered, enemies began to move in the shadows, plotting how to end the man and the girl whose story was spreading like wildfire. The whispers had begun, and nothing could stop them now. The whispers spread faster than fire in dry fields. By the third day, what had begun as rumor became story, and what became story began to turn into legend. The tale of the human who broke the chains of his alien slave bride was told on trading stations, in the slave pits, in the courts of nobles, and even in the halls of the military. But not everyone whispered in awe. Some whispered with fear, and some whispered with hatred. For every slave who dared to dream of freedom, there was a master who cursed the name of the human who had planted that dream. In the grand palace, the alien emperor sat upon his throne. His eyes burned with quiet fury. He had spared the human for now, but already the consequences of that mercy were slipping beyond his control. Advisors crowded before him, their voices sharp. "This man undermines your rule." One hissed, "He must be silenced." "His act inspires weakness." Another spat, "If others follow, rebellion will rise. Better to make an example." A third growled, "Chain him, kill her, and let the galaxy fear us again." The emperor raised his hand and silence fell. His face was cold stone, his mind sharp. He had ruled too long to act with simple rage. He knew the danger of martyrs. He knew that the human's death would not end the story. It would feed it. "No," he said slowly. "Not yet. Death is too easy. Death would make him legend. We must break him. We must turn his defiance into despair. We must make his love into his curse." The advisors bowed, though uneasily. In their hearts they craved blood. But the emperor's will was law. Far from the throne room, in dark chambers beneath the palace, others plotted in secret. They were not nobles nor advisors. They were soldiers, assassins, and spies. Those who lived in shadows and thrived on whispers. To them, the emperor's patience was weakness. In a circle of dim light, one assassin sharpened his blade. "The emperor hesitates," he muttered. "But hesitation breeds danger." A cloaked spy leaned forward. "The human has already made himself symbol. Kill him now, and the story ends." Another, her eyes gleaming, shook her head. "Not the human first, kill the girl. Break his heart. Show him that his choice brings only suffering." The shadows agreed, a plan was made. While the emperor played at strategy, the shadows would strike at the root. They would crush the girl and leave the human broken. Back in the human's quarters, the freed girl sat near the window. She stared out at the alien city, lights burning across the horizon like stars trapped in cages. She felt both wonder and fear. Wonder at the beauty of a world she had never been allowed to see. Fear at the knowledge that it was filled with those who wanted her chained again. The human polished his weapon at the table, his movements calm, steady, but his eyes never left the door. He knew danger lingered. He could feel it in the way the guards looked at him, in the way silence pressed against the walls. "You do not sleep," the girl said softly. He glanced at her. "I will sleep when I know you are safe." Her breath caught. She lowered her gaze. "I am not worth your sleepless nights," she whispered. He stopped his work, his voice firm. "You are worth far more than chains." Her chest tightened. Tears burned her eyes. She turned away quickly, afraid he would see. But unseen by them both, danger already crept closer. The shadows had begun to move. That night, when the palace halls fell quiet and the guards grew lazy at their posts, 3 assassins slipped through the corridors. They moved like smoke, silent, unseen. Their target was not the human, yet their target was the girl. Inside the chamber, the girl lay on the floor near the fire, her breathing slow and heavy. The human sat upright, weapon resting across his lap, his eyes closed but his ears sharp. The first assassin slid through the vent above, blade ready. The second moved through the shadows near the wall. The third prepared at the door. The girl stirred, a strange cold crawling over her skin. Her eyes opened slowly and she saw it, movement in the dark. Her breath caught, but before she could cry out, the assassin leapt. Steel flashed. The girl screamed. The human's eyes snapped open. In a single motion, he grabbed his weapon and fired. The blast lit the room. The first assassin fell from the vent, crashing to the ground. The second lunged from the wall, blade aimed at the girl's chest. The human blocked with his arm, the blade slicing across his skin. Pain burned, but he did not falter. He twisted, driving his elbow into the assassin's face. The figure fell back, hissing in rage. The third assassin burst through the door, weapon drawn. The human shoved the girl behind him and fired again. The blast struck the attacker, who collapsed in a heap of smoke. Silence followed, broken only by the girl's trembling breaths. She clutched his sleeve tightly, her eyes wide with terror. "They came for me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Yes," he said, his voice low and steady. "And they will come again." Blood dripped from his arm, but he ignored it. He looked at the bodies on the floor, shadows already dissolving them into ash, the mark of assassins trained by the Empire. The girl wept silently, covering her face. "It is because of me," she sobbed. "They want me dead. You should never have freed me. You should have left me." He turned to her sharply, his voice firm but not cruel. "Never say that again." She froze, staring at him through her tears. He stepped closer, his presence steady like stone. "It is not because of you. It is because of them. They fear what you are now. They fear that you are free. They fear that you are no longer theirs." Her lips trembled. "But they will kill us both." "Then let them try," he said. "I will not let them touch you." She covered her mouth, her tears flowing. For the first time, she believed his words. For the first time, she felt that perhaps she was not a burden, not a curse. Perhaps she was worth fighting for. Far above, in the dark council of shadows, news of failure reached their ears. The assassins had been killed. The girl still lived. The human still stood. The leader of the shadows slammed his fist on the table. "He is stronger than we thought," he hissed. Another snarled, "No, not stronger, just more dangerous." "Then we will not strike in silence again," the leader growled. "We will strike with armies. We will strike with fear. We will strike until the galaxy knows no hope." But what they did not see was how their failure had already changed the girl. She no longer saw herself as only a victim. For the first time, she saw a path forward, not only as someone protected, but perhaps as someone who could fight. The human sat with her by the fire, his arm still bleeding, but his eyes calm. She leaned closer, whispering softly, "You risked your life for me again." He looked at her with steady eyes. "I will risk it 1,000 times more." The shadows had moved. The danger had revealed itself. But something else had been born in that night of blood and fear, something stronger than chains, something that could not be silenced by assassins. Hope. And hope, once awakened, cannot be killed so easily. The chamber still smelled of smoke and blood from the failed assassination. The human's arm was bound with a strip of cloth torn from his own shirt. The girl sat close by the fire, her eyes fixed on the glowing embers. She had not spoken for a long time. The silence was heavy, yet not empty. It was the silence of 2 souls trying to understand what had just happened. Finally, she whispered, "You could have let them kill me." Her voice trembled. "It would have been easier." You would be safe. You would be free from this burden. The human turned his head. His eyes were calm but sharp. Do you think you are a burden? She lowered her gaze. Her hands trembled in her lap. All my life I have been told so. I was chained because I was nothing. I was given away because I was worthless. Every master reminded me that I was only property now. You bleed because of me. You suffer because of me. He rose to his feet, his shadow stretching across the firelit wall. He stepped toward her, not in anger, but with a weight in his presence that silenced her self-blame. His voice was firm, steady. As stone, you are not a burden, you are not worthless, you are not chains. You are a person, you are alive. That is enough reason to fight. Her breath caught. She wanted to argue, but the words died in her throat. She had never been told such things before. She had never been looked at this way, as if she truly mattered. He sat down again, this time closer. His eyes softened. Do you not see? He asked gently. They want you dead because you are no longer theirs. You are free, and freedom frightens them. Her lips trembled. She turned her face away, afraid he would see her tears. But in her heart, something stirred. It was more than gratitude, more than relief. It was something deeper, something she had thought she would never feel. She dared to ask, her voice barely a whisper. Why me? Why risk so much? You could have refused quietly. You could have walked away, yet you stay. He looked at her for a long moment before speaking. Because you are more than chains, because you deserve to live, because I cannot see you as they see you. Her heart raced, her chest ached. She clenched her hands tightly, afraid of what her feelings meant. For days the palace kept them under watch, guards outside their quarters, spies listening for weakness. The emperor waited, believing the human's resolve would break under pressure. But it did not. Instead, the bond between man and freed girl only grew stronger. At night she would sit by the fire listening to him speak of the stars, of Earth, of the endless skies of his home. He told her of oceans so vast they swallowed the horizon, of forests filled with green life, of skies where no chains existed. Her eyes widened as she imagined such places. She whispered, "It sounds like freedom," he nodded. "It is," he said, "and one day you will see it." Her heart filled with longing she could not name. For freedom, yes, but also for something more. For him, the whispers of their bond reached the ears of the emperor. At first he dismissed them, but then the rumors spread further. The human is not her master, some whispered. He treats her as equal. Others said, he speaks of her as if she is his partner. This was more dangerous than defiance. This was love. And love was more powerful than fear. The emperor called his advisors. His voice thundered. He does not simply protect her, he dares to honor her. If the galaxy believes a human can love a slave, then the chains of every world will weaken. The advisors hissed in fear. One demanded, "Then end it. Kill them both." But the emperor's eyes gleamed. "No. Let them declare it themselves. Let him say the words before the galaxy. Let him bind himself to her. Then we will strike. And when he falls, love will die with him." So the trap was set. Days later, the emperor summoned them both to the great hall once again. The crowd was larger this time. Nobles, soldiers, even foreign envoys. All had come to see the human who had dared to spit on tradition. The girl trembled as they walked into the hall, her hand brushing against his arm. "They will kill you this time," she whispered. He shook his head, his voice low but steady. "Not before I say what must be said." The emperor rose, his cloak dragging across the floor like a shadow. "Human," he said, his voice heavy with mockery. "You refused your reward, you freed your slave, and yet you still keep her by your side. Why? Tell the galaxy why you protect her so." The hall grew silent. Thousands of eyes bore into him. The girl trembled. She wanted to hide, to vanish. But he stepped forward, his voice rose, strong enough to shake the pillars. "Because she is not my slave," he declared. "She is my equal. She is my choice. And before you all, I say this. I will not own her. I will marry her." The hall erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed in outrage, soldiers shouted, envoys gasped. The emperor's eyes widened with fury. The girl froze, her breath stolen from her chest. Did she hear him correctly? Marry. Her hands shook, her heart pounded. She looked at him in disbelief. You cannot mean that," she whispered. He turned to her, his eyes soft but unyielding. "I mean every word," he said. "You are not chains, you are not property. You are the one I choose, not as a prize, but as a partner." Tears filled her, eyes spilling down her cheeks. For so long she had believed herself broken, unworthy, but here, before an empire, this man chose her, not as a slave, but as his equal. The emperor roared, "Madness, treason. You shame this hall, you shame your kind." But the human stood tall. His voice thundered above the noise. "It is not shame to love, it is not shame to free. It is not shame to choose hope over chains." The crowd was torn. Some shouted for blood, others whispered in awe. The story had grown larger than the emperor's control. The girl stepped forward, her tears shining. She raised her trembling voice for the first time. "Then I will stand with him," she said. "I will not be your slave. I will not wear your chains. If he chooses me, then I choose him." The hall fell into stunned silence. For the first time, she had spoken not in fear, but in defiance. The emperor's fury shook the walls. "Then so be it," he thundered. "If you choose each other, then you will fall together." Guards surged forward, weapons drawn. The girl clutched the human's hand, her heart no longer afraid, for she knew now that even if death came, she would not die as property. She would die as someone chosen, as someone loved. The human raised his weapon, his eyes blazing. "Then let the galaxy see," he shouted. "Let them see that love is stronger than your chains." And in that moment, before blades and fire, their bond was sealed. Not by tradition, not by chains, but by choice. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy trembled. For something greater than war had just been declared. Love. The great hall burned with noise. The human's words still hung in the air like thunder that refused to fade. "I will not own her. I will marry her." The freed girl's voice had followed, trembling but clear. "If he chooses me, then I choose him." Never before had such words been spoken under the emperor's roof. Never before had chains been broken with love instead of war. The emperor's fury shook the pillars. His voice roared like a storm. "Guards, kill them both." The command unleashed chaos. Dozens of armored soldiers stormed forward, weapons raised. Their boots thundered against the floor. Their blades glowed with deadly light. But the human did not flinch. He gripped the girl's hand tightly and pulled her behind him. His weapon blazed, fire cutting through the first line of guards. The hall erupted into battle. The crowd screamed. Nobles scrambled to the walls. Envoys hid behind pillars. Some shouted for blood. Others whispered in awe. The story was no longer a whisper. It was alive. Unfolding before their very eyes, the girl's heart pounded. She had lived her life in silence, in chains, in fear. Now she stood in the center of war. But this time she was not alone. For the first time, she felt chosen, and that gave her courage. She never knew she had. "Stay close," the human shouted, his voice steady even as weapons clashed around him. She obeyed, but something inside her burned. She no longer wanted only to survive. She wanted to fight, not with weapons, but with her voice, with her choice. As guards closed in, she raised her voice above the chaos. "I am not your slave," she screamed. Her words echoed against the marble walls. "I will never wear your chains again." Eat. All froze for a moment. The guards hesitated, even the emperor's eyes widened. For never in his rule had a slave shouted such words before him. The human smiled grimly. "Good," he whispered. "Let them hear you." The battle raged on. But the story grew louder than the weapons. Messengers fled from the hall carrying the tale across the palace. From the palace it spread to the city. From the city it spread to the stars. By the next sunrise, the galaxy was already shaking. On slave worlds, the whispers became chants. No more chains, they shouted. No, more masters. In hidden pits and dark mines, slaves lifted their heads for the first time. The name of the human was spoken as a spark of hope. On noble worlds, rulers seethed. This cannot stand, they spat. If humans teach love to the chained, then no slave will obey again. Armies were summoned, fleets prepared, but on distant stations, common people whispered. Perhaps the humans are different. Perhaps they see us as more than property. Some voices trembled with fear, but others trembled with excitement. Back in the hall, the fight dragged on. The human's weapon burned. His body scarred, but still he stood. The girl clung to him, but her eyes no longer showed only fear. They showed fire. Finally, the emperor rose from his throne. His voice thundered, silencing all. Enough, he roared. This charade ends. Now, he drew his own weapon, a blade black as night, humming with ancient power. The crowd gasped, for the emperor had not drawn his blade in decades. The human met his gaze. So this is your honor? He said, his voice steady. A ruler who fears love. The emperor snarled. Love is weakness. Chains are strength. You cannot change the galaxy with words of the heart. But the girl stepped forward, her voice breaking yet strong. Then, you are blind, she said, for chains break but love does not. The emperor's rage boiled over. He charged, blade flashing. The human met him head on. Their clash shook the hall. Sparks flew. The floor cracked beneath their feet. The fight was fierce. The emperor was powerful, his strike sharp, his fury endless. But the human fought with something greater. Conviction. Every strike of his weapon carried not only his strength but the strength of his choice. The girl watched, her heart tearing. She wanted to help. She wanted to do more than stand. Her hands shook, but her voice rose again, louder than before. He is not alone, she shouted. I stand with him, we stand together. And in that moment, something shifted. The guards hesitated. Some lowered their weapons. Some even stepped back. For deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. Could it be true? Could chains really be weaker than love? The emperor saw it too, and his fury deepened. He struck harder, faster, but the human met him with equal force. At last, with one final clash, the human's blade burned through the emperor's weapon, shattering it into shards of darkness. The hall fell silent. The emperor stumbled, disbelief in his eyes. The human stood tall, his chest heaving, his weapon steady. Your chains end here, he said. The emperor tried to speak, but no words came. The crowd stared in shock. Some screamed, others cheered. The story had reached its climax, and there was no undoing it. The girl stepped to the human's side. Her voice was soft but carried through the hall. We choose each other, she said, and no one can take that from us. The galaxy trembled, for the story of the chained slave bride and the human who married her was now more than legend. It was truth. It was defiance. It was love. In the weeks that followed, uprisings shook the stars. Chains were broken. Rebellions sparked. The empire fought back, but every battle carried the same chant. No more chains. And at the center of it all stood the human and the girl, not as master and slave, not as reward and prize, but as husband and wife. Their love stunned the galaxy. Their choice changed it forever. And where once there had been silence and fear, there was now a new sound, carried from world to world, from star to star, hope.